and welcome to the Mortgage Coach Friday Mastermind. We are here to connect as a community of like-minded mortgage professionals. And the things that we're like-minded about are we believe in advice over price. Like, we believe that if you can give a family more than just rate, payment, and cash to close, that you can give them advice that they'll always remember, that's the best way to do mortgage business. We believe in technology, using video, using Zoom, using it to personally connect, using it to leverage our communication. And we believe in leadership. We think that the best loan officers are the best leaders. And so those are just three out of many things that we believe. But today I've got my wingman, my co-host, Todd, Bookspan. What's up, brother?
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. We were just talking about it. 1 week ago, you were standing here alongside of me live in the office, and here we are back. You back in Portland and me still here. So excited to be here as always. And, I love it that you started off with a reminder of what our community is about, right? We started around productivity and using Mortgage Coach and, tools and technology to get more done. And I still think that rings true today. And so, I'm kind of excited for the topic of the day, right? We're going to we'll talk about the call that you had on Tuesday with Jeremy Forcier and Denise Donoghue. You called it the Wizards of Financing. Was that the title or something cool like that?
Becoming a financial wizard. And yeah, that's what it was about, which would be the advice piece. And you know what, let's just make this a sandbox. Like, when I opened it, I kind of did a triangle: leadership, advice, technology. Let's make it a sandbox, and it's productivity. And it's win by noon. Todd and I partnered on the creation of this when he was founding Win by Noon, which is a community dedicated to personal productivity. Like, you want to get the most out of your day and feel good about it and make a lot of money and be successful, it's productivity. So I'm glad you added that, because there really is, it's a sandbox. It's not a triangle that this community is all about.
Well, and so as we start talking about the kind of the debrief from what you did on Tuesday, first off, if you haven't watched it, no worries. Put it on your to-do list for the weekend, and you're still going to get a lot out of this call. If you did watch it, then we would love you down below in Facebook or in Zoom to give us your kind of top takeaways and, what you took away from that call. But I think it's super relevant, right? Both Denise and Jeremy did a masterful job of walking through kind of their conversation and their thought process behind what it is that they are, what is it they're doing today in this market to do a lot of business. And, they dug deep on their personal story, which I thought was really cool, kind of that why behind it. I oftentimes think that especially if we've got a hard personal story, that we forget that's what made us who we are, and then we're afraid to share it. But ironically, sharing that transparently is what translates out to your clients. It translates out to your borrowers. I think they both did a masterful job of giving that insight. And then they each walked through what their conversation is like. And they said a few things that I thought really stood out. So I've got notes, my page of notes here. And I'd love your opinion on this, Dave. One thing they said is that LOs are on a run to the bottom when it comes to rate. They said that the drive for low rates isn't driven by the consumer 100%, that actually LOs are driving that conversation there, primarily because they're not using tools like Mortgage Coach in a more in-depth conversation with their borrowers, like both Jeremy and Denise are doing. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I want to make sure I get everybody balanced where we're at. I'm going to share my screen real quick just to make sure you guys are all on the same sheet of music here. So this particular topic, it'll last however long it lasts, is about this interview that I did on Tuesday. Two monster producers. They've both done over 1,000 total cost analysis. Jeremy's done over 5,000. And so this is what we're talking about. I put a link to this in both Zoom and a link to this in Facebook. And I'm actually not going to share another link to another video throughout this call, which is unusual. Usually I'm like, oh, got to watch this, and here's a link to it. No, like there's 3 homework assignments. There will not be another link shared to watch another video for the rest of this call, because this is one of those interviews that I've done that if you believe in the 4 things that we just talked about, you have to listen to this. And then more importantly than this, you need to dedicate some time to take some notes so that you remember it. And then you've got to take some time to implement the things that matter to you. So this is it's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this an important discussion topic, because this is an important piece of content. And so I'm going to cover that first thing that you did. So one thing to me that made it really special is that they both started off with like their why. Like Denise calls herself the mortgage nerd. Why? Jeremy calls himself the mortgage wizard. Why? And if you watch this interview, they share some things that you may not know about them. I've interviewed both of them countless times. Jeremy had shared some of his painful story personally before, and they were both at Amplify with me a couple of weeks ago, Rene Rodriguez's Amplify event, and they both got in touch with their mortgage advisor. Why? Like, why am I not a loan officer, but I'm more than that? So I want everybody to come away from today like, we're going to work on our why. And then I would just push you, if like Rene Rodriguez was on this call right now, you're going to come up with, oh, my why is this. And I want to push you one step further. Well, why that? And then I want you to actually think about things that happened to you in your childhood that drove that why. And here's the thought. If you ask yourself why 3 times, maybe 5 times, you're going to get to the core of why you are who you are and why you are the way you are. And so I just wanted to touch on that. If you have watched that interview, give us a shout out down below so we kind of know how many people that are live watching this that have watched it. And if you had a favorite takeaway, put it down below. If you have a question for Todd or I, let us know what it is. So back to you, Todd.
Yeah, I just loved it. Denise said your success should never be determined by an interest rate, right? And so I love when she talked about the fact that she called it a rate board, right? I've never heard anyone say that before, and I love that term. And when she said,
I've never heard that either. That either.
Right. So she shows a little square snippet that she put up there from Optimal Blue, showing rates from 2 3/4 all the way up to 5 1/4. And she's like, there's 20 to 22 different rates, and walk through how it's her job to help them figure out, what makes the most sense. And you talk a lot, Dave, about the Challenger sale, right? It's a book with regards to how the best people in sales educate and challenge their clients in a sale. And I really love that she first challenges them on rate, right? She's trying to remove it from emotional decision to financial decision, right? And most of us just take whatever the client says and we run with it. And she talked through her scripting of how she moves it from emotional to financial, and she's willing to challenge her clients on whether or not, the down payment makes the most sense, whether or not that amount of money makes the most sense. And of course, she's using a TCA as, the gold standard to show them what that looks like. And I just find that is the missing piece right now, where when I'm talking to loan officers and they're frustrated by rates or they're frustrated by clients, I say, well, tell me about your sales process. And it normally starts with, what's your rate? Oh, my rate's, 4%. Oh, I can get 3% somewhere else. And then they never really dig in on the conversation. And so, which, by the way, I'm super stoked for your call on Tuesday. Did you want to bring up what that's going to be?
Yeah, well, I mean, we could do it throughout the call. I will, since you threw it to me, I will promote it again. But Josh, this idea, I do not get credit for it. Josh Metal gets credit for it. And it came out of our Amplify event and some things that we learned from Rene at that event. But at the end of the day, a question that every loan officer gets all day, every day is, what's your rate? And sometimes that rate is like, what's your rate? And you can just tell this is a grinder. They're shopping you hard. And sometimes it comes up in more passive ways, but it's always a question. And so we're going to do a call on Tuesday. I don't know exactly how many people are going to be on it. It could be 10, but it's all epic top producers. And I'm going to Josh and we're going to co-lead this call, and we're just going to ask them, what's your rate? And then they're going to talk about how they answer that question and how they take the borrower from how the borrower is defining it. I want to know your rate, and how most loan officers basically end up having a commodity conversation and end up competing on rate. And they're going to talk about, hey, how do we turn this into a value conversation? And how am I now going to compete and completely flip the switch from loan officers to mortgage coaches? And so that's what we're going to do. If you want to hear how 10 ballers answer that question, check us out Tuesday, 9 o'clock. There is a post in our group. Check it out down below. I'm not going to put a link because I told you I wouldn't. But in our group, there is a link if you want to come to that call next Tuesday at 9. Thanks, Todd.
Well, it's just going to be so good. It was, we've had so much fun the last couple of years doing Scriptapalooza, and I think this will be kind of like the mini Scriptapalooza, and certainly we'll crush it, and we'll get Scriptapalooza on the schedule soon, where we'll talk about What's Your Rate, as well as a bunch of other relevant scripts that are going on in the market right now. But ultimately, I think that's the challenge. I think that's where most people get tied up. And I thought it was funny because I'd never heard the term. Denise said commission breath, and I always say that people on the other side.
Wait a minute, right? I had never heard that either. I was just like, boom, that was so solid.
Well, I always tell loan officers that if you're desperate for that commission, your client can smell it through the phone, right? They can hear it through the phone. They hear desperation. And I think realtors get in the same spot where they got to pay their mortgage and they're worried about it, and they're pushing so hard on the transaction that the client feels it. And so I liked it because one of them said, yeah, commission breath versus making money, right? And so it was Jeremy, I think, who said that. He just said, gosh, you know what? You got to get away from that. And this is how you do it. This is how you make money. You make money by actually challenging the clients and walking them through this. And so I think what I liked about it so much was, number one, is I could see that I could use either of those and get rolling, whether I'm a newer originator or whether I'm experienced. I think there's something I can adapt into my conversation from one or both of those, because again, you're going to have different ways that you're going to view it. I loved it because Sean Guerrero posted in the Facebook group that he loved Jeremy's wealth slide. And I thought that was really great too. And so what his wealth slide was, it had 4 quadrants in it. And he said, and I've never seen this one either, right? Their proposal was that your home price should equate to about 3 times your income. Although Jeremy said, if you make $1 million a year, doesn't mean you have to buy a $3 million house. But I thought that was an interesting number, and I have to look through and see, where, how relevant that is in, like the market where my team is in Phoenix. So I would take a look at that. It reminded me a little bit, I don't know if you remember, Dave, back in the day, oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank? Jim with Nations. McQuaig, thank you. Right, his 4-step cash flow priority plan, right? That was like totally for me a decade ago, like was my go-to script. I took Jim's script and I made it. So he talked about that 6 months of, he called it 4 months of reserves. Jeremy said up to 6 months or $25,000, right? That's the key, right? That's how you keep your clients out of credit card debt. And then he talked in the next 2 really about how to build financial wealth, right? Make sure you're using your 401k and the match, which ironically, I know a lot of you have companies that have 401k matches and you're not using them. So that would be certainly take Jeremy's advice and start that yourself. Then get Jeremy talked about why he chooses the S&P 500 mutual fund to be like Warren Buffett, which if you haven't listened to Tony Robbins' book where he talks through his interviews with people like Warren on how they would want their money invested with their spouse when they pass away. Warren said, I would have her put it all into a low cost S&P 500 index fund. And then he talked about the 5 stocks he invests in and why. He said Apple and pulled out his iPhone, said Tesla, which tells him he must drive one, Nike because he wears them. So I mean, think about those things. It was just super cool advice. And what's your version of that, right? You can swipe and adapt that same piece and walk your clients through that, just like Jim McQuaig did, probably over a decade ago, probably more like 13, 14 years ago.
So let me jump in here. So guys, what we're talking about now is the tactic, the sales strategy of what's your price. And you'll notice that both of them are expanding the value to the consumer, that it's not like rate and closing costs and cash to close are important, but there are things that are more important. They're expanding it. And you'll notice that they both, Denise did a really cool job with right now there's 22 different rate options for you. And she called it the rate card. Brokers, this is part of their move. And I just thought it was neat. Like, she's a mortgage banker and she's basically having that mortgage broker type conversation. Like, hey, there's a lot of different prices, a lot of different options. Neither one of them did this, but I have interviewed enough loan officers that I know a lot of them will at that point go like, hey, rates don't change weekly, daily, they change hourly. And they'll spend a minute, describing and using Rate Watch to make the case that, hey, here's your rates, but they change every day throughout the day. So just that's a tactic. And then what Todd was just laying down and talking about how Jeremy put through a couple slides that said, hey, let's look at your whole life. And that's a tactic. But I want to go back and remind you guys that you can listen to that call, you could get their tactics, you could write down their scripts, but if it's not powered by personal values and it's not powered by a personal why, it will be a fraction of the success. And that's the other thing. You probably, if you do not adopt these values and adopt that why, the chances are you'll listen to the call, you'll listen to this call, and you won't really change. You won't really adopt these scripts and these tactics that I personally believe are game-changing, life-changing, career-changing. And I do believe that there are enough loan officers now that are making this change to be advisors, not loan officers, that they're gonna own the future of the mortgage business. And if you're not a mortgage coachless mortgage advisor, your market share and your success in the business just won't be the same as the mortgage coach. So Todd, what were some other tactics? So they had this why in the story. They kind of flipped the conversation. They both had different ways of reframing and expanding what it means to get to be a mortgage. What were some other tactics or things that you thought were important to call out?
Well, I mean, Denise did what I think is the most common. She showed, a rate in the, with the 3 in front of it, rate right around 4 and a rate at 4.25. So she did that normal drive up, and then she did the comparison over 5 years because she listened to the client. The client said, I'm going to be in the home for 5 years. And she showed him why a higher rate made more sense based on that scenario. So again, she's listening to the client. And then Jeremy went in and he used an example where the rate was 3.99 for all 3 scenarios because the client said, I need a rate in the 3s. But then he also was laser focused when he walked through why he picked the way that he structured the loan. One of them gave the max payment that they wanted, and the other one gave the max cash out of pocket they wanted, and he recommended the one in the middle. And then one of the things that Jeremy talked about, he didn't say it specifically in there, but I'm pretty certain based on what I heard, what he did was he actually put it into the TCA. He recorded a video and then he shot the video out because what he said was in his scripting was that, yes, I think that middle option with less money down is the best. That's how I'm going to disclose your loan to get everything started. We can always change it later. So it seemed to me that was a video that he had sent out to save time. And I think that that's really critical. Again, use the technology. Dave started off saying that that's, one of the ideas of this principles of this community is how can you use that technology to make sure that you're being more efficient, right? Because Jeremy also went in on there and he said that the bears don't sleep when the salmon is running. And both of them said that they've been working some late nights, right? Telling the family, asking the family permission to work those late nights. And I think, we've been talking about numbers and accountability, right? Jeremy said, I made 22 phone calls. I did 22 TCAs, and I've got 7 appointments as a result. So every person he called was based on the fact that he built them a TCA. He knew exactly how many people he called, right? Which I think is critical. And then he knows now that he's going to have 7 transactions as a result as of that point. And my guess is probably after the fact, the other 15 people have all gotten in touch with him and, wanted to see if there was an opportunity for them to refinance. So I think it's also that whole idea of you got to make hay while the sun shines. And some of you may need just to stretch yourself a little bit from a timing perspective and really push over this weekend to see if you can't serve some of your clients.
So a couple things, I've had questions come in. I want everybody to realize that, I thought this was such an important call that I had it transcribed. So if you scroll down, you can see there's a link to a transcription of the call. Denise is going to be sending us samples of her TCAs, but we currently have Jeremy, the TCA, the purchase options that he went through, and the refi version. We're going to make that a topic today just because rates are down and we know so many of you guys are doing a lot of refis. So we're going to make that a topic and make sure you guys know how to have a great refi conversation. So I just wanted to call that out. I also want to just remind you guys, this is a live mastermind. Sean Guerrero, thank you for jumping in and asking a question. Robert or Roberta, thank you for commenting. Linda Buchanan. Linda, it's been a long time since I've interviewed you. It's good to have you on today's call, and I do want to interview you sometime soon. So, but remember, to everybody watch this right now, if you have a question for Todd and I, this is a mastermind. We're 20 minutes into it. We've got another 40 minutes. Put those down below. You can put them in chat and Zoom, but really Facebook Live in the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind group, we're both paying attention to that during this call. So any questions, comments, things you want to make sure we're clear on, put those down below. So Todd, let's break down the tactics. So we powered by why, transition the conversation, expand it from rate, and then just list out the tactics. Like if we're creating a playbook so people can literally like check, 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 what would be some of the other things that they need to check from that interview?
Well, I think the big key is that they're listening and hearing what is important to the client. Because you can never say, you're trying to eloquently, slap them upside the head without, outright insulting them. I often find, you can't tell a client rate's not important, the most important thing, because that's what they think it is. You have to actually help them understand it, right? That's why when Denise said we have to go from emotional decision to a financial decision, that's always the thing that the client is thinking in the mind. So, I think that you have to listen so that you then can go in with the TCA and build the TCA that matches up to what they just told you, along with what you think is a better financial choice, right? Both of them built out their TCA to match up to what the client said, and then took them away from the rate piece into a financial strategy, right? Wouldn't that be the next step in your mind, Dave, or would you say something different?
No, I would. I think the only thing I want to make sure we do is we don't just make this, it's about the TCA, the total cost analysis, because that is a product, that is a deliverable, but there are specific skills that are taking place and there are specific tactics. So I want to make sure you guys get that. And I'm going to pull up, the Mortgage Coach Black Belt training, just to make sure you guys connect the dots. And we really turn this call into kind of a playbook to make the change. So as you guys know, we have this, how to become a black belt. And then of course, at the top of the Mortgage Coach advice ladder is the Grandmaster, who's done over 1,000 TCAs. So tactically, what they've done is they've gone from, white belt loan officer, transactional triangle, rate, payment, cash to close. And they, the first step is orange belt, is just cost over time. So when they're expanding it from rate, they're expanding it to like, what are your goals over 3 years? What are your goals over 5 years? And in Jeremy's case, he really, he pulled it up and he talked about retirement planning. And another word that Denise uses a lot is generational wealth. And so I think that would be one idea, is just there were a number of transformational words that they used. And I transcribed this and I'm going to write an article on it. I'll call out what I thought were the transformational words. And then just the funny words like commission breath, don't be a loan officer with commission breath. But they're cost over time. And then we all know when it comes to refinances, it's investing the difference. Every purchase strategy, you don't need to do an invest the difference strategy, but every refi, you want to say, hey, let's take that savings and, do you want to invest it with your financial advisor, or do you want to prepay your mortgage? And depending on whether it's a Dave Ramsey like client that is conservative and I just want to be debt free and pay off my mortgage, or whether I'm more like Rick Edelman, financial advisor, and I want to invest it and do that. We're mortgage planners. Like, we're not financial planners, we're mortgage planners, at least what I teach. And I'm just here to help the customer make an informed decision. I'm not here to say one strategy is better than another. That's the customer's job. But I am here to give them the advice and the transparency so that they can pick the strategy that makes sense. And so just a reminder, when you say total cost analysis, it's got the transactional triangle, rate, payment, closing cost on any device, any platform. And then it's got the advice star, prepay strategies, and transparency over different windows of time. So just want to make sure we make this as tactical, memorable, and make it so you guys can take action on this. Todd, what's next? what else did they have? And then let's try to, in like 5 minutes, transition into how to kill it at your next realtor meeting and how to make the most of today's refi. Mark.
Yeah, so I think two things on there. You know, number one is that Jeremy, you said they use words, right? So they really were specific about it. Like Jeremy pointed out on his client, he said it's a 50% reduction in the cost of the mortgage insurance, right? So he made sure he highlighted that. Like that was really important to him to point out. So think through those words that you like to do. I always say it's like rubbing a little salt in the wound or poking someone in the side, where you're really just trying to get them to think, and the words that you use can do that and figure out what those words are and how to get comfortable with it. And then the other thing that I think we fail, and if we don't bring up, is, and Denise didn't say it till the end. So like you really have to stay on to the very end of that call. If you didn't watch it, like watch it all the way to, it went like a couple minutes over. I would like stay till the very end. It wasn't like, you know, niceties at the end. Denise threw out some stuff, but she talked about that if you don't have a huge database, right? So Jeremy went through what his current plan was. He said, hey, if you don't have refinances right now, I would be going back to people from 6 months, then 12 months, then 18 months. And he said, because they're most familiar with me, right? I got to imagine that Jeremy's not very forgettable, but he said that most people remember him, you know, right? The longer the time frame goes. And then Denise said, hey, if you don't have a big database, then jump out there and start doing some social media videos. And Dave has posted some of them in the past. So if you look at, you know, Denise's stuff, you'll see it. But ultimately, historically, Denise said, hey, I'm going to do a video where she's going to tell a story. Hey, a client just called me thinking they should refinance because rates dropped, and here's why I talked them out of it, right? A client called me and wanted to refinance, and here is what I told them they needed to look at in order to make the best decision. So think through, she's done such a good job of creating videos. You know, again, we're all a community, swipe and adapt, go stalk her, you know, her videos and see what she's put out there. And I'd be using, you know, obviously Instagram and Facebook and using stories on both to put that out there. And I think that's, you know, that was a great tip that she gave there kind of to wrap it up towards the end.
Okay. So a couple more things to make it tactical. And then I just noticed Mr. Rene Rodriguez joined us. So remember guys, expand beyond rate. This is actually a picture of the slide that Jeremy used, and he walked through it, which was one of my goals. You know, Jeremy gave credit to Rick Ruby in the core for how he does this. And he walked you through, you know, like, hey, this is how every client, and I know this because we have over 100 level 3 core loan officers that use Mortgage Coach. I know that every single time they meet with a client, they do the triangle of trust. Like that is something they do all the time. They always expand the relationship so that I think Rick calls it financial wizardry. Like, so that they are like positioned as a financial wizard. And then again, from a mortgage coach perspective, it's important to do that advice star. But here's the thing, and I love, Todd, that you brought this up with this group. You know, when we look at the values that we're all about, productivity, winning by noon is one of those. And the way that you optimize your productivity in today's world, it's using technology. It's putting a video on it. Not only does that create personal connection, not only does that drive the emotional connection, but it's also super efficient. And if you're ADD like me, you don't have spelling errors, and you could do it faster. And knowing that, hey, you know what? I'm not in a place where I want to do a video. I'm going to add audio. Oh, I can't meet them face to face, so I'm having a live experience. I'm either using Mortgage Coach Live or I'm using Zoom. Remember, all of these things, they're like clubs in a golf bag that you pull out and you play that club at the right time. And again, you've got to deliver an omni-channel experience. So some families want the app. Some family members want to drive 30 minutes to get a piece of paper. You're giving them what they want, where they want it, how they want it. And then you need to get alerts. And that's one of the things that I love about a Mortgage Coach report is that every time a family clicks on this link, they're getting the video. You're getting an alert that they get it. So you can deliver an experience like this. Not that I advocate violence here at Mortgage Coach, but this was my favorite testimonial from 2019. We'll see if someone could do better. But a buyer got a Mortgage Coach video, and he said, the time you spent explaining my loan options, borrower, makes me want to find the past 2 lenders I worked with and punch them in the face. So guys, that's it. Like if you listen to Jeremy and you listen to Denise, and you were a consumer, after hearing what they do and how they do it, you would just be like bummed that you worked with any other loan officer. And if you were a active duty military officer, you'd probably want to punch your other loan officers in the face. So we got Rene Rodriguez on the call. Rene, how long have you been here, buddy?
I just got on about 3 minutes ago. Sorry about that.
So you don't be sorry. I invited you last minute. You're looking pretty sharp, man. Were you just doing videos?
We're doing a podcast for the book. So we decided we're gonna, instead of just audio recording the book, that we're gonna create a 12 series for every chapter that we do, sort of the road to writing this book, and we can follow along as it's written.
I love that. I love that. Are you Rene had sent me a video yesterday, and it looked like you had the same outfit on. Are you wearing the same thing, same pants as you had on yesterday with that video that you sent me?
Yeah, I'm actually wearing pants now. See, I'm actually wearing pants right now. No, it's actually it's a different.
That was a little inside joke for everybody in the Amplify community. Rene did this video. He's all buttoned up, and he walked off and he had some gym shorts on. It was hilarious.
Those were my boxers, actually. But yeah.
Okay, whatever. I was giving you the benefit of a doubt.
Well, I think we all do that. So I think it was just trying to. Yeah, I don't want to derail that, but yeah, it was. I'm wearing pants right now.
All right, so let's do this. I'm not going to have you debrief on what we just talked about. We just spent 31 minutes doing a debrief on the interview that I did on Tuesday with Denise and Jeremy. By any chance, did you watch that interview or hear anything about that interview?
I've heard a ton about it. I've watched the first part, and as you know, you and I have been playing phone tag for the last 4 days. I have phone calls and meetings, so I have not finished it, and I'm regretting, but it is on my list because anything from those two has got to be pure gold.
Yeah, it was, and you would have been proud because they both not only gave a bunch of tactics and strategies, some of those that were fine-tuned at Amplify, but they told their personal story, which was powered by Amplify. I can tell everybody watching this call right now, if I would have done that interview with Jeremy and Denise the week before they went to Amplify, it would have been different, and it would not have been as good, and it would not have been as purposeful. So check it out, guys. So Rene, why don't you stay on the call?
Sure.
Why don't you give color on some things going forward? Also make note your internet cut out a little bit just now, like you were talking and you got pinging. So if you can't improve that, just be intentional. So Todd, what do you think we should transition? Should we transition to how to make the most of today's kind of refi wave, or should we do the realtor, how to crush it at your next realtor meeting?
I think that we should jump onto the how to catch this refi wave. I think we should dig in on that for a few minutes, and then since Scott's not here, I know he had some great feedback on that. If we got time, we can still jump in on the realtor presentation. I kind of mentioned it just a minute ago, and I'd love, hear what you, Rene, and what you think, Dave. I love Jeremy's tactic. He just went back 6 months and then went back. He said, I'm going for the low hanging fruit, right? I mean, he doesn't, mince any words, right? I'm going for whatever's the easiest. And I just tend to find people get overwhelmed and overthink it, and just pick up the phone, right? I mean, there's different tactics you can do it. For our team last year, when rates dropped, we just shot out an email saying, hey, here's what the Fed said, and here's what it did. If you have questions and want us to review your mortgage, let us know. And keep in mind that we actually send out as a team every month. My team sends out the mortgage planning questionnaire, the one like Lori Richardson has, which is down in the file section of the Facebook group. And that goes out every month to whoever closed, so right now, March is about to go out for people who closed in March, the previous however many years, we've got records back to. And so think through, you don't have to overthink it and try to create a mailer and send it out. A quick email out to your folks, a quick video email out to your folks would be even better. And maybe that's what, Rene, you can give us some tips and advice on. And then just, pick up the phone and start calling, right? Start looking at people's loans. I love that Jeremy said that he put 22 calls and 22 TCAs. That means he took the time to put the TCA together before he called the client to know exactly what they would save based on the loan that he had just closed for him. He didn't call him and say, hey, did you put down an extra $100 of principal and find out what their exact balance was? He just said, hey, based on the loan I did for you, here's what I can save for you. And so I think that that's really the key, is to not overthink it and put pause. It's actually get busy and start making calls and start building TCAs and start actually getting in hand-to-hand combat.
So I'll give my color, and then Rene, if you could give your thoughts on this. So, first of all, this is not the first time where I have seen purchase first mortgage originators make the most of the refi market. And so a theme that they both said that I always see the best do is, first of all, they give themselves permission to be out of balance from a work standpoint. So they get out of balance, and if they have a spouse or a significant other, they've included that person, like, honey, I'm going to be working late. So first of all, it's recognized the fact that the number of hours you're putting in the business is going to expand. And if it doesn't expand, you're either, one, you're not making the most of the refi market, or two, you're sacrificing your realtor relationships. Because if you're a purchase first lender, you do not want to take your eye off the ball of your real estate agents and your partners. So you've got to add more hours to the day to service your refi opportunities. And then I interviewed Michelle Castle a couple of weeks ago. It was in the first week in January, and she told me, in the interview, it's like, Dave, I can't remember if she said 73 or 78, but it was a very specific number of people. I've got 70, and I'm gonna say 78 families that I need to reach out to this week that my team and my CRM have identified as out of my, and I know she has a database of over 1,000, most likely to benefit from a refi. So she's being intentional, she's being strategic, and I don't know if she uses Win by Noon or not, but she's planning. Like, I gotta, with in addition to my purchase first business, I gotta make 78 calls this week. And in her case, that also means 78 TCAs. So, and the TCA is important because that's your presentation. You wanna make sure that you're reaching out and you're doing it in the most compelling, the most powerful way possible, so that you're just sniper. I am nailing these refis. And then my last piece, and I'll throw it to Rene, when you present a refi, don't just present the monthly savings. Remember, the difference between a loan officer and a mortgage coach or a mortgage advisor is that we expand it from rate, payment, savings to what's the value over time. And so if you took the difference in savings in refi and you prepaid the mortgage, that's a good default. You can show the family, like, look how much interest you can save. Look at how much faster you can pay off your mortgage. And now you're not just calling up and saying, hey, I can do your refi. It's easy, it's fast. You'll save $123, which, trust me, so is the lender servicing their loan. So is Big Data Bank. So is Quicken. So is everybody harvesting refis in today's market. They're calling up and they're saying, I can save you a monthly payment, or they're mailing them. And if it's a big enough loan amount, they're FedExing them. So you want to deliver transformational value. So those are my playbooks. Rene, anything you want to add to that?
So much is written about leadership behaviors and how we should be better leaders. Not enough is talked about on proper followership behaviors. You asked me about refinances, and that's when I put my follower hat on. That's where I put my student hat on, and I default to you guys. I default to the Todds and the Jeremys and all the people even listening to this call. You have laid out the foundation, the work to do. And to me, in this scenario, if you are not knowing what to do, put your student hat on, grab a pad of paper and a pen, and start diving into the videos that you have suggested. Listen to the Jeremys and the Todds of the world and all the other folks that you have on this. That is the path. And so my advice to those people is just implement and follow the basic things that are being talked about. Anything complex, I learned from one of my mentors who did the strategic planning for Brian Tracy for 20 years. And he said, simplicity drives execution. And so the simpler you keep this thing, the better. And so you have laid this out for all of us. And for me, the only advice I'd give is to follow exactly what you guys are doing. And if I wanted to add anything onto that, use the TCA as a presentation tool. Again, cost savings without the contrast or the contrast of what is currently happening isn't as valuable. And so maybe before you present the cost savings, have a bigger picture conversation with the client or the borrower of things and dreams and vacations they want to take, and where are they going to find that money? And if they find themselves not knowing, then show them the savings. And then here, we just found it for you kind of context. And so whatever simple presentation you can do to build the context prior to that would be good. But again, put your follower hat on and listen to what these guys are telling you, because if they've done it and they're doing a lot of them, and if we're struggling with it, let's follow those who are doing it well.
So Rene, one piece of leadership I'd love to get from you in this call, and you know, I already told everybody in this call and promoted the call that we're doing this Tuesday with the Amplify Seattle crew around what's your rate. And one thing that I know we're going to do in that conversation is we're going to talk about the process that we learned from you, you know, on how to frame something, message, and tie down, and how to expand, you know, how to go from, you know, rate to expanding it. And that is a framework. While you may not be the domain expert at refis, you are an expert at framing, creating a message and a story, and tying things down. And so it would also be just good prep, because probably just about everybody listening to this call right now is going to be on the Tuesday interview. Would you mind just giving us, you know, 2, 3, no more than 5 minutes on that?
Yeah. Well,
set the table.
You've heard me say this before. Think of a piece of chicken. A piece of chicken with no story ends up on a $1 menu at KFC. It's that simple. But you put a story in front of that piece of chicken, and you hear where it comes from, where it's going to be presented. You put a nice dinner space there and a great story. All of a sudden, we might pay $100, $200 to eat that same piece of chicken off of a tasting menu because of the way it's packaged. And so the story matters. And if people ask what your rate is or cost, it's one of the saddest questions in business, I think, because it immediately shows that the client didn't know what else to ask. What it also shows is that you didn't offer a value proposition. So the client was forced to create one for you. And they created one based on the only thing they know how to measure, which is rate. And so, yes, is rate important to be competitive? Yes, it's one of the factors. But I can guarantee you, I don't know what my interest rate is on my house right now. I don't know what my interest rate is on the car that I have. I don't remember. I sometimes forget my monthly payment, which I spent weeks haggling over. And so we forget those things, but they become so important in the moment. But we have to learn to really help the client reframe the conversation into what the real picture is. And if you really are in this business to help people with building wealth and helping with their financial independence and their future, whatever that why is that you have chosen, then you have to be able to learn how to move it to a bigger conversation than rate. In my work, when people say, what does it cost to bring you in? My response is always the same. What does it cost to bring me in or not bring me in? And, you know, they giggle about it, we giggle about it, but it changes the conversation focus to what the value is versus what this short-term insignificant rounding error of a cost is in the moment. We go to what's really trying to be created. And if we can't identify a value that would cost to not do business together, then we don't do business. It's that simple. And so the rate is a very simple one. If people are shopping for you, you have to be able to shift the conversation into a much stronger conversation. And man, you have collected the best at that. And I am so excited to be part of it. I know.
Beautiful. So I want to, yeah, you're fine. So guys, just to make this practical for you, everybody is going to be talking about monthly savings and rate different. You need to expand that in a way that's as tailored as possible to wealth accumulation. How can I save you interest over the life of the loan? How can I help you become debt-free faster? And what does that mean to you? So I'm going to show on my screen right now something. I'm not going to put a link because remember I said no other homework assignments, but I do want to remind everybody that we have this mortgage strategies page within our website. If you go to connect, I believe it's one of the options. Or maybe it's lender services, but go to this mortgage strategy page right here. It's under lender services, mortgage strategies. And under this, not only do I have interviews with top performing mortgage professionals, but we'll call it out. So like Wally Elderberry, past client review. Not only will there be an interview with Wally, what he did and how he did it, there'll be a link down here to one of his TCAs. And you'll see that he's training this from point of sale to every interaction he has. He's expanding his value beyond rate, payment and monthly savings, to, in this particular case, given the loan amount size, what if you paid an extra 500? What if you paid an extra 1,000? And he is showing the interest savings over time. And then he is showing it over longer periods of time. In this case, 15 years. So that they can see, like, my advice is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. My advice is the difference between having debt at the age of 50 or 60 and being debt free. So I just want to make sure we really hit that home. Todd, anything you want to add to the conversation at this point?
You know, I just love how, I love your chicken story, Rene. Like, that is just like, had me laughing. It's so genius. But I think that, you know, again, the story piece matters. It made me think of on my way into school. I drive my daughter to school every day. It's kind of just one of our traditions. We listen to the certain radio station, to the certain contest, and now they threw commercials in afterwards. And so every day this week, there's been a mortgage company with a commercial, and the commercial's been that, like, Charlie Brown teacher commercial. We have FHA loans and VH loans. And even if you don't have a down payment, give our company a call. And then today it was different. Today it was a little bit of storytelling. It was the DJ, again, I don't know if they call him that anymore, the host of the show. He said, gosh, I don't know about you guys, but I had a lot of credit card debt. I could count them on two hands. I had 6 different credit cards. And he told this story. And he said how that mortgage company had helped him consolidate his debt into a new loan. And now instead of having 7 different payments, he only has 1. And so I want to bring that up again, this whole idea of talking and telling stories and making it different, because the other thing I failed to mention in the first part of the call was both Jeremy and Denise said they're okay challenging their client to lower down payment and to pay off credit cards. Again, change that conversation, like Rene said, away from rate and to change it to something different, something that's more important. And so, yeah, it wasn't probably as good as what we're going to learn on Tuesday from the call, but I think it was a pretty darn good transformation of a commercial. What do we have there, Dave?
You're on mute, Dave.
I hate it when I do that. All right, so last topic, we got 13 minutes left, and I'm going to be interested to hear Renee's take on this. I do want to remind you guys, this Tuesday, 9 o'clock Pacific, I'm going to be there. Renee, are you going to be there? You're invited. I don't know if you can make it.
To the rate call?
Yeah, what's your rate call?
Oh, yeah. From what I understand, I thought you were having me facilitate, so. Yeah.
Well, you and I will prep on that.
Perfect.
All right, guys. So here's our last topic. There was a post from Aaron. And so, by the way, Aaron, good job, dude. Really, or appreciate you posting in our group. Any suggestion or tips using MC for a realtor lunch and learn? And we had, it looks like about 25 different comments. I want to shine a light on some of the comments from Scott. And I put in the group, Scott had given a text, like if you text 1378 to 949-408-6141, you'll get a sample of how he uses Mortgage Coach. Again, it's not about Mortgage Coach. It's about visual advice that expands your value. Like, that is what he's doing. And it's also about getting the agents to think about things that they think they know, but get them to realize they don't know. It's bigger than that. And then here's the other thing. Like, when it comes to using Mortgage Coach within the context of a realtor lunch and learn, it's really the whole purpose and the goal is to get them to think about things in a whole new way, so they learn something they hadn't otherwise considered, and to do it in a way that they will never forget. Like, they will literally be like, holy shit. They may not say that out loud, but in their mind, they're like, I hadn't thought of it that way. And now it's visual, it's memorable, and they won't forget you. Like, that's the game. So and I would also tell most loan officers, when they go into a lunch and learn, the goal is to get a loan. Like, I've never heard where, like, I want to get a deal. I want to have someone, I say something clever enough that they're like, I'll give you my next deal. And then most loan officers are pretty nervous. Like, maybe 20 to 30% of loan officers are pretty confident speaking in front of large groups. Most of people are just like, one of their goals is to not screw up. Like, not freeze up. You know, you're so worried about just like getting through the meeting and not sucking and getting a deal. I want you guys to change the paradigm. I want you to have 2 new goals. And one of these new goals came from Amplify with Rene. And one of them is just something that I've dedicated my professional career to. And that is, your goal is to teach them something they'll never forget. That's your goal, period. If you do that, the business will come. And then something I learned from Rene is your goal is not for them to like you. Your goal is for you to like them. And that starts before you even stand on stage. That starts with how you walk into the room. That starts with, you know, when you get to the room, are you just sitting down kind of minding your own business? Or are you trying to find people that you like? You know, so before you go on stage, you're connecting with people. You're connecting with sincerely, not for them to like you, but for you to like them. Because if you can walk into that room and find a few people that you like and that you connect with, when you stand on stage and your goal is to teach them something they never thought of before, and Mortgage Coach is just a prompt to do that. You know, at some point in the conversation, you don't brag about the tech. You don't like, oh, it's an app and it's all this nerdy tech stuff. No, it's a story. You pull it up and let me tell you a story. And let me explain to you why this story is so powerful. And let me explain to you how this story can help you sell more homes. Let me tell you how this story will take those first-time home buyers that are like herding cats and actually create urgency with first-time home buyers. So you're gonna tell stories that connect to things that you know realtors want. They want to sell more homes. They want first-time home buyers to be easier to work with and have more urgency. They want to have better conversion. So those are my thoughts. That's how you use a Mortgage Coach TCA at an open house, or not open house, in a lunch and learn. So Rene, we got 8 minutes. I'll let you kind of wrap up as much of that 8 minutes as you want. And then Todd, why don't you plan to close out the call with Coach Todd of Win by Noon, actionable deliverables. Rene.
You had said something is teach somebody something that they've never thought about before. It reminded me of a quote from Stanley Kubrick, where he said, "The ability to talk about a subject matter can create the consoling illusion that we've mastered it." And you had said, realtors, they can talk about mortgage all day long. Financial advisors can talk about mortgages all day long. But are they in that consoling illusion that they really understand what's going on? And when you walk in with a strong visual presentation to really look at something that they've never done, all of a sudden you can snap them out of that consoling illusion to go, holy shit, I didn't know that. I didn't have that. But you need a tool to do that. And whether you want to create your own tool, and I love that you said it's not about Mortgage Coach. Mortgage Coach is the presentation tool, but it just happens to be the one that, I mean, you're so in touch with the customer that you created the things that they need. But that visual presentation to be able to snap somebody out of that consoling illusion that they really don't know what's going on. And that is where you start realizing there is an expert in the room and I need to take notes from this expert. And I guarantee you this, as arrogant as a realtor may sound, even the most arrogant are wanting a professional to work with. And when you can display that you are professional by showing them information and talking about it, that, like you said, you'd made those connections. Here's what this means to this. Here's what this means to that. Here's what this means to you. Constantly, here's what that means to you. That is when you really distinguish yourself from the rest of the people. So I would remember that consoling illusion, that our ability to talk about something can create a consoling illusion that we've mastered it, also applies to us. Just because you talk about mortgage, are you able to connect it to other elements of the process? Are you able to talk to a financial advisor that thinks that a mortgage is just an interest rate, and not understanding that there's much more going on in that picture? And so I would just make sure that you master the skill of presentation using a tool that shows this visual, it's just a contrasting visual to make it so simple to understand, and go in there and be that expert, because that's when you set yourself apart.
I love that, Rene. And I'm going to pull up a TCA, and I want you to just think of it like this. Like, you want to be in a position where you don't have this on the screen the whole time. I mean, I do recommend there's a time when you're presenting, there's no slides, there's nothing but you standing up and connecting with the audience and telling a story. And then there is a time where this pops up And if you are in a small venue and it just has to be up all the time, that's fine. Have it up, but stand somewhere else. Like stand somewhere else where they can just focus on you. And then how do you use Mortgage Coach or TCA in I don't care whether you're talking to 1,000 people or you're talking to 10 people or 5 people, there's a time where you get them to look at it. And then the last piece of advice is you want them to have a multi-sensory experience around it. And that's why what Scott does is so genius, is he gives them a text number, like, hey, if you text this number to this phone, they get it. So they pull out their phone, they text that number, they get a TCA. Now they have the deliverable of the TCA in their phone, and now they're experiencing it. They're getting the consumer experience, they're getting the advice, it's on their phone, you have their phone number. So to learn more about what Scott does, go to sellerbuydown.com. And I think if you just text the number, you'll get the experience. And Todd also, well, no, I think his group is private just for his members. But remember that, everything I said earlier, and then you want to get everybody in that room to have that experience so that now they're interacting with it. And that is how they'll never forget you. Now it's like, you may not become their preferred lender. You probably will not become most of theirs preferred lender, but you will be someone they remember and someone they respect. Todd, we got 4 minutes to wrap it up.
Well, I would throw a couple things on the presentation piece, even though I know Rene is the, Mr. TED Talk guy and he's done these presentations. But when you're creating a PowerPoint, like Dave said, you don't want it up behind you all the time. You can just do a blank slide that's intentionally black. So you click that next slide and it's blank, and that'll draw the attention to you. And then the other thing is you have to know the size of your room.
Or just hit the letter B.
Hit the letter B. There you go. All right. Well, that's good. I didn't even know that. That's good to know. And then the other thing is remember that if you got it on screen and someone's way back here, they're not going to see those microscopic pieces of Mortgage Coach. So you're going to want to actually snip those and then make them big. So when you're going to show the original TCA, and then if you're going to show, column 1, great, then take a screenshot of that and then have it be big on there so you can point to what it is that you're walking them through. And one of the things that Scott Nicholson did in that thread that Dave pulled up a few minutes ago with regards to someone's question about the realtor meeting is he actually made it about that person. So Scott actually went to that loan officer's page where he co-branded with a realtor a property, and he created that seller buy down for that community member's site. So think about that. If you're going to go out and you're going to do a rent versus own, why not get a listing from someone who you know is going to be in the audience and make that really relevant to them versus just pulling up some random person? It's so much more personal and interactive if you can say, hey, you know what, Rene, thanks so much. This is one of your listings that you shared with me that we now put into rent to own. I'd love to do this for any of you. And so you have that opportunity to have the ask of, hey, look what I did for Rene. And guess what? I'm happy to do it for you, because like Dave said, you may not get them all as your partner, but you know what? You have more highly likely, I don't know whatever the right grammar is there, to get them if you're actually providing value, like Dave said, have the text number. So I thought that was really awesome. I just think kind of as an action plan coming out of here, we already said action plan number 1, watch the video, the links below if you haven't done it, of Jeremy and Denise, because the bottom line is rates are great. You've got clients who need you. You're the best loan officer you know. And if you think that, then you should be making sure that instead of their servicer or some random person who sent them a letter in the mail gets their loan, it needs to be you. So you've got to block time coming out of this call to get the list, start picking up the phone and calling people. You don't have to build the TC up front like Jeremy did. He did that because those were recent clients and he knew it worked. But what you can do is literally start picking up the phone, call a client who you see their interest rate and just say, hey, notice that rates have dropped. I think I can save you money, and then create your follow-up there. I think the bottom line is if you don't actually block the time now, if you just get off this call, you take your phone out and you just start replying to email, guess what? You're working in the business. You got to spend time working on the business. You guys have an opportunity. We want you guys to make some money. We want you guys to crush it. And so that would be my assignment to you. And I hate to say it, I'd maybe carve out an hour or two over the weekend or more and take advantage of rates while they're low, and see if you can't pull up a few more refis.
A whole hour or two? A whole hour?
You listen, Rene, I'm just trying to start small here, because I bet the Jeremys and the Denises of the world will probably spend,
Let's
6,
spend the
8
next 2
hours.
days.
Right?
Yeah.
Get up early.
Well, and here's the deal, guys. Every high school student in America is going to have more than an hour or two of homework this weekend. And what we're talking about here are things that are so much more valuable than a high school student's hour of homework this weekend. The things that we're talking about could change your career. Could think about how much you make per loan, what this call is worth. It's not worth one loan. It's not worth two loans. It's worth a lot of extra loans, but only if you, one, consume the content, and two, you take action on it. So I do these interviews to bring the content to you, bring the ideas for you. I do this Friday call to make it more actionable. You know, like Tuesday is for sharing new ideas and content. Fridays is for productivity. Help you guys take action. If you got value from today's call, please give us a like, whether you're watching it on YouTube, whether you're watching it in our Facebook group. Let us know if you liked it by engaging with the community. If you have a question, if you had a favorite quote, if you really liked something about the call that you're listening to, comment down below. And I hope I see a lot of you on this Tuesday's call, 9 o'clock Pacific. We are going to crush it. Josh is so funny. We have this thread going on in Rene Rodriguez's Amplify group, which is just for Amplify graduates. And he's like, this is going to be the best, most watched mortgage coach call in history. So Josh is competitive, and Tuesday is going to rock it, guys. Rene Rodriguez, thank you for being on it. If anybody wants to learn more about Amplify, you can email me or go to crenespeak.com to learn more. I think I had a goal that 100 mortgage coach professionals would go through Amplify by the end of the year. And I think we're going to have over 100 by June. So check it out. One last reminder to everybody, we have a couple spaces left for Jeremy's site visit in 2 weeks. So if you want to go to Jeremy Forcier's site visit, email me, Dave at Mortgage Coach, or Todd. This call is a wrap. Take care, everybody.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. Work hard.
See you guys. See you, Todd.
And play hard, too.